Welcome back, you lovely people. I hope everybody has had an amazing weekend. What is it, Monday? Yeah, an amazing weekend and an amazing week since we last spoke. So welcome to the AMA. Please do put whatever questions you have in the chat and in the comments on Instagram and Zoom, and I'll make sure that I get to them all. And before we do that, of course, we'll have a little market update. And I'm sure everybody is feeling pretty good at the moment, especially considering, you know, how you've been feeling for the past few months. And let's not forget that pretty much all of the crypto universe was saying that we are going to 20,000 or 10,000, or that we're in the bear market and that it's all over and crypto is dead, etc., etc. And now we are just chilling back at $46,000 Bitcoin, which is extremely healthy. We have had a really great move off the bottom. You know, we're up 60% off the bottom. So well done to anybody that was buying around 30,000. Of course, we were covering that really closely and saying that $30,000 Bitcoin is probably the opportunity of a lifetime. So well done for those that leaned in. But $46,000 Bitcoin is still extremely cheap. I just did a video where we talked about the potential low of the next bear market. Got that coming in at about $50,000 at the moment. So 46,000 is still lower than the next bear market. Now, of course, we expect to go a lot higher from here. That's at the trajectory that we're on. The structure looks really, really nice. And we're well on track for what is laid out in the Bitcoin playbook, for our peak to come somewhere between, my base case is mid-October to mid-November. There's certainly scenarios where it's a little bit later. They've been covered on the channel. So we'll be looking for that price action where the price goes parabolic. And we have not seen that since 2017. And then before that, 2013. So we're looking for that price action. I'll be doing a lot more content around that, particularly when we talk about exit strategy. In terms of next steps, I put out some tweets earlier today. You know, whether we have a quick, probably cover Yassine's question here. I'd say I was thinking about this earlier, looking at the data, looking at the past cycles. I'd give it 50-50 at the moment, whether we have a quick correction or we keep going higher. We're definitely reaching a bit of a decision point as we've been going sideways for a few days. So I can see scenario A is what Yassine has put in the comments, a quick 20% dip into 42,000, which will have been our breakout into the most important trend line in crypto. That would be normal. And then to the moon, for sure. I've also got a scenario where the market looks so bullish at the moment. Every time we dip, buyers are stepping in. And there's still not much leverage in the system, which is a really positive thing. So a lot of this, a lot of our recovery is being driven by spot retail buying. So what does that mean? That's like me and you, normies, who are picking up half a Bitcoin or whatever it may be. And that means there's a hell of a lot of room still to grow when you get all the massively leveraged traders coming in, all of the hedge funds coming in. We've still got all of that to go, and you know that will be one of the reasons why we go up way past six figures. So I could see a scenario where we just blast into 55, 60,000 and then have a a 30% correction. So A and B, it doesn't matter, to be perfectly honest with you. The direction is towards the cycle peak. Not sure on the short term. Flip a coin as far as I'm concerned at the moment. But sitting here in mid-August and looking out 2 to 4 months, then we're extremely bullish. Couldn't be more bullish, and things couldn't look more perfect based on what we would expect them to look like around this time. So all very, very positive. Of course, if anything changes, we'll be all over it, as we always are. Quick word on altcoins, because some of them have been blasting off. So I know there's a lot of people who didn't sell their altcoins when I called the end of alt season. Maybe you didn't believe me, but greed took over, or maybe you didn't watch that video. Now, not financial advice, but altcoins have had a really great move over the weekend and a few days before. So if you were in a position where you're looking to flip into Bitcoin, this might be a good time. And yeah, that's all I can say about that really. Some of them are up massive, like Solana's up 26% today and was up 20% yesterday. So we're having a mini alt season, which I called. We talked about that last week, and I've been talking about it all week on Twitter. So again, expected, and I'm just saying that really not to pat myself on the back, but the more data that we're seeing, the more confident we are in our approach and our strategy and our thesis. Again, that we'll continue to study and make sure that we are objective. So if that changes, we can be all over it. But at the moment, looking really, really nice. So please, I haven't got many questions yet, so you better start adding them. Otherwise, this is going to be a short session. I don't want anybody to get cut off. I think I've got one so far. So you need to start putting them in. Otherwise, you're going to miss the opportunity. Yassine again, thank you. XRP price prediction after settlement in October, September. I'm not following the XRP case. I have no idea if there's a settlement coming. I don't think if anybody does, because if we knew that, it would already be priced in. So my first word of caution is, don't bet the house on something which is out of your control. If if that doesn't go the right way and people are starting to bet on it going the right way, then XRP could go to zero. So be cautious on that. I'm just looking for XRP here. I mean, XRP has had an amazing move over the weekend, so that's great to see. But yeah, I wouldn't say that's because of the settlement. It's just the whole market has been moving. XRP was one of the big gainers in the last alt season of the last cycle, so the end of 2017, and went up something like 16 times in 2 weeks in 2017, which is obviously insane. And I think, they call it Ripple for a reason. It tends to rip. So it does have that potential for sure. I can't speak on the settlement, but what I can say is that if it rips like it did in 2017, then You know, what could you see? A 16x from here? You could see $15 XRP as just sort of back of the fag packet calculation. So that could be, but just be very careful. That's very much going to the casino, in my opinion. So know that you are gambling on that one. And I will be doing, we are going to have a final alt season. It is going to come in the final month of the cycle. And I'm going to be doing content on it because I'm going to be watching it very closely. It's going to be not for the faint-hearted, because anybody that chooses to take part is going to be extremely high risk, of course, potentially high reward. And, you know, I'll be looking, I haven't been spending much time on altcoins because it's been a Bitcoin story during the shakeout and since the shakeout. We're having a mini alt season now, which is really just a taster of what's going to come at the end. So I'm actually starting to study altcoins over the past week just to get a feel for how they're moving. And then when we get to the final alt season at the end of the cycle, I'll be covering that really closely, because there could be some 10, 20x's to be had, and I'll be covering that on the channel, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that a lot here. The timing will be everything because it will happen really, really quickly. It's not one of those like at the beginning of this year where you could join late, like a lot of people did. If you join late on that one, you'll lose. So you need to be ahead of the curve. And, you know, as well, obviously, as well as following me, if that is something you're interested in, you should be studying it right now because it's not too far away. So the more work you put in, of course, the more chance you have of being successful. All that aside, we expect Bitcoin to do a 5, 6, 7x from here. So for those that are not chartists or gamblers, then you know my preferred strategy is 100% Bitcoin holding till the cycle peak. So a lot of people tend to get distracted by the altcoins. I'm sure many of you have experienced that, and it's really for experts only. So just have that self-awareness of your skill set and how much time and energy that you want to put into it. And if you don't have all of that, if you don't have the time and energy or the skill set, then you're just focused on Bitcoin, and you will, if you do that, you will become financially free anyway. So you don't need to stress about it. Ben, can you talk a bit about Ethereum and why you mentioned it was centralized in the Telegram group? And then I'll come to your other questions. I will do, absolutely. Ben, somebody asked me a question in Telegram earlier today or yesterday, and I don't have the ability to find it right now. If you have Telegram open, then please will you pop it in for me? If not, don't worry. I can't remember who it was from. Somebody who said they can't join. So why is Ethereum centralized? Well, Ethereum was created by a guy who we know who it is, Vitalik Buterin, with a team, including Charles Hodgkinson and Gavin Wood. So we know who the team were, we know who the developers were. They did a pre-mine, so they created 70% of the tokens before launch, and they raised money to do so by selling tokens. Since launch, the Ethereum team, i.e. the Ethereum Foundation, decides what to do. So decide what development should take place. But most importantly and fundamentally to this conversation is that they decide what the monetary policy is going to be. So they decide how many tokens are going to be released, how many are going to be burned. They're deciding to move to proof of stake. That is a small group of people who are making decisions. And when you have a small group of people that are making decisions, how is that anything other than centralized? So they label themselves as decentralized, like all of DeFi does. When they talk about being decentralized, they're talking about having multiple nodes around the internet that are verifying transactions. So there is a level of decentralization that, for example, a central bank doesn't have, but the vast majority of the governance structure and decision making is centralized. And this is what most people don't understand when they're talking about Ethereum. And it's really important to understand because you need to know what you're investing in. And if people, the comparison is always made to Bitcoin, and your next question is weighting of Bitcoin to Ethereum or altcoins in a portfolio. I mean, you're really comparing apples and oranges, or at least you're comparing digital gold stroke, the savior of humanity, to speculative technology that are like small technology companies. Ethereum, big technology company, but there are levels of importance, and they're not even close. You know, Bitcoin is doing God's work, and Ethereum is a technology company. It doesn't mean it's not exciting and perhaps going to have some positive impact on the world, and there's some, you know, intelligent people working on it. But, you know, really understanding at first principles levels what this is all about, for me, is critical to making good decisions, and to making good decisions which are going to impact the world in a positive way. So Ethereum and, you know, Ethereum fans and influencers are quite disingenuous, in my opinion, many of them, because there's nothing wrong with being a fan of a technology company. Like there are Apple fans and Amazon fans, etc. But you should really have that awareness of the landscape. And I think many do and choose not to speak about it. If I was really into Ethereum, well, these Ethereum people should be saying that Bitcoin is it. Bitcoin is the thing that really, really matters, and Bitcoin is the thing that can change the world. Hey, if you also want to invest in our cool technology, then put a bit of your portfolio in. So when you're talking about weighting, like for a long-term investor, I wouldn't expect anything less than 80% in Bitcoin. And of course, Ethereum influencers, shills, etc., are going to tell you should be 80% in Ethereum. And for me, that's complete nonsense and dangerous to somebody's portfolio, because over time, Bitcoin will probably eat Ethereum's lunch if you're comparing them in terms of returns. You can time Ethereum and get those massive pumps, but if we're looking 20 years out, then do you want to own the digital gold and the new currency of the internet and the new currency of the entire world? Or do you want to own a speculative technology company that has issues and a centralized team making decisions? What happens when Vitalik disappears, right? And so, yeah, hopefully that makes sense. And for those that don't get that yet, it's really about learning, studying. And if you're not ready to put in the work, 100% Bitcoin. Once you start putting in the work and understanding what this is all about, and then you decide to put a bit in Ethereum, then that's great. That's a good decision. But just be careful out there who you are listening to. So that applies to all altcoins. Bitcoin is the only decentralized, I don't even want to call it a project. I don't want to call it a cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is the only true form of decentralization, really, because it had that immaculate conception. There's no central point of contact. There's nobody making decisions. So is it worth pound cost averaging into cryptos? Usually called dollar cost averaging, but I get it if you're in the UK. Usually we call it dollar cost averaging anyway. Is it worth it? Yeah, it's 100% worth it. If you've been dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin for any decent amount of time, then you are starting to become extremely a lot better off than you were before you started. Bitcoin is programmed to go up versus fiat currency forever. So dollar cost averaging is essentially beginning to extract yourself out of the fiat system. And that's exactly what you should be doing. Because fiat currency has been devalued by 15% a year, and Bitcoin is compounding at a return of 200% per year. So if you're continually moving over, then you're doing the right thing. The only time when we perhaps have a slightly different strategy or view of the world is probably like right now, because we're 2 to 4 months out from what we expect to be the cycle peak where the price goes parabolic. So you have the option of front loading your investments, getting the vast majority of those returns, and then begin to average back in after the inevitable crash. So that's the only, the only other way to look at it. Both strategies are good. Trying to time the cycle is, of course, more difficult. If you just want to set it and forget it and dollar cost average into Bitcoin for the next 8 years, you'll open up your portfolio in 8 years' time and probably retire. So it's definitely a very, very good strategy. Bella, any comments on the graph? I won some free graph on Coinbase. I think I've got some free graph as well. I used to look into the graph and a lot of these altcoins. I believe it's trying to be the Google of the blockchain, being able to index data and have APIs that people can plug into and look stuff up. So seems like a good use case if you believe in the new blockchain world and the internet moving onto the blockchain. I don't know much about their team or their tokenomics or any of that. The use case seems good. Seems like it's definitely something that's going to be needed. So seems good, yeah. If you're going to be in altcoins, then definitely find, well, you've got 2 options. You either find the ones with good fundamental use cases, and I think the graph is in that category, or you find those that are going to have the hype and rip, like we've already talked about XRP and Dogecoin over the weekend. So they're your 2 strategies. That's for you to figure out. Jane, on a video I watched the other day, you seem to suggest it would take a year for Bitcoin to bottom out. So if you sell at the peak, expect to buy back when it bottoms. That's potentially a period of 12 months or so. Yes, well, we can measure it quickly on my screen here. So in 2017, we peaked in the beginning of December 2013, and we bottomed the end of December 2014. So call that 13 months after the peak. And in 2017, we peaked mid-December, and we bottomed early December. So call that 11 months or so. So that is the strategy in the playbook, and will be in the 2022 Bitcoin playbook. When we put in our peak, whether that's October, November, December, whenever that may be, then we'll be looking for the bottom of the bear market, which we would expect to be about 12 months from that date. And we would expect a correction of about 80 to 85%. So if you are skilled enough to take profits around the peak, a lot easier said than done, but we'll be following it closely and trying our best. Then you make sure you take care of all of those profits. And then in, let's call it the end of 2022, then you'd be looking to buy a lot of cheap Bitcoin. So that would be the equivalent of you buying, at the end of, when was that? The end of 2018. And you would be hoovering up Bitcoin at $3,000-ish. And now you're sat here at 46,000. So that's a 15x return already from the bottom. And of course, that is the beginning. You would hope that we're going, if we go to 300,000, you've made 100x return from bottom to top, which is of course life-changing money, probably for you and future generations. So that is the optimal strategy if it plays out. It's what's played out for the previous 2 cycles. We can't say it's 100% going to play out for another cycle. And you'll hear people out there saying it isn't. And it is my belief that it is. So I'll be following it on the channel, and I'll be doing my best to talk you through it. And I'll be doing my best to identify if it's not happening. But so far, everything that is happening so far in this cycle indicates that the cycles are continuing to play out as the previous ones are. So, so Jane, and everybody, this is whether you've made money or not over the past year. I know some people are very late to it. I know some people are making mistakes, trying to trade and stuff like that. This is all a learning experience, because what you are really doing is positioning yourself for the next cycle. If you manage to get some profits from this one, then that's fantastic. I only started the channel a year ago. I wasn't there talking you through it at the end of 2018, right? But this time we're going to be there together. So the aim, you're saying you're lucky if you'll get 5x. No, your aim, Jane, is to get that 100x, right? That's what we're aiming for. And if that ends up being a 50x, then I'm sure you'll be okay with that. But the aim is, the Bitcoin playbook is to try and sell the top and buy the bottom. That is very, very hard to do in practice. And we're not going to get the exact top and we're not going to get the exact bottom. But the strategy that we laid out a year ago, and we are now, let's call it 3/4 of the way through, is playing out as expected. So now the next phase is the cycle peak. And after that, the next phase is the bear market, culminating in the bottom of the bear market. I think the other thing I'd say to that is really about study. Like the more that you put it, the more time you put in, the more successful you'll be. I know a lot of people, judging by my views, for example, when the market starts going down, they switch off. That's a massive mistake, because that is the most important time to be studying. If you're not studying the corrections, how are you going to buy the bottom of the bear market? That's the ultimate correction. That's an 80 to 85% correction. So, and you know, to those that are continuing to watch, and not necessarily me, but to study and learn, then well done to you, because it has been a difficult few months. Let's not lie, but that's where the real value is in life, of course, when things are difficult, and it's no different in Bitcoin. And of course, you know, making money, fantastic, but this is about more than that as well. As we know, it's about protecting ourselves from the debasement of the currency, which is most likely going to end up in a collapse of the currency. And if you are not positioned for that, you're going to get destroyed, and most people are not positioned for it. That's ultimately what we're doing here, because that's what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is that life raft against what they are doing. So when we talk about selling the peak and buying the bottom and the 100x, etc., what we're really talking about fundamentally is getting ourselves as many Bitcoins as possible, which is what it would have been like in the 1920s in the Weimar Republic, with the impending hyperinflation and trying to get as much gold as possible. It's really, really important that you understand that. Otherwise, this is going to become like you're gambling. And it's not that. If you approach it the right way, with the right principles and the right understanding, then you will make more money than you'll ever need and be able to protect yourself and everybody around you. Yassine, how soon after the next Bitcoin halving will we see the price action? Okay, so we always look at what happened in previous cycles. And let's see here. Just need to make this a little bit bigger. So let's have a look at the last one, which is basically when I started my content around that time. That was in May of 2020, the last halving. That was shortly after the liquidity crisis globally in the beginning of the pandemic. So we'd had a bit of a crazy time just before the halving. And then post halving, we went sideways. We were at 9,000 at the halving. We went sideways for 8 weeks, so 2 months. And everybody was saying, oh, it's not happening this time, right? As they always do, as they did during the mid-cycle shakeout. Oh, it's broken, it's not happening this time. And then we took off, right? So from after about 2 months after the halving at 9,000, we went up to 65,000 in 9 months, which is a 615% return. So that's the impact of the halving. Of course, we expect that there's more to come. And in 2016, we had a run up just before the halving. So people front running and anticipating the halving went up 80% in the month before. And then we had a little dip just after the halving. So that we went down 30% in the month after the halving. So again, I wasn't involved at that time, but I'm sure you would have had everyone saying at that time, oh, we all bought before the halving and now we're going down and the halving's finished and the impact is finished. And then from that dip, which was a month after the halving, Bitcoin went up from $477 to $19,000, which is a 44,000% return in a year and a bit, right? So, and there was one before that, but we don't need to look at that as well. So we can just say around the halving, people will probably, the more data we get, the more front running we'll probably get. I imagine the next halving, everyone will be piling in 2 months before, 3 months before, because it's becoming a bit more obvious, right? But that's why we're buying the bottom of the bear market, which is way before that. The next halving is in 2024. We're buying at the end of 2022. So we'll be in, we'll be set, we'll have as many Bitcoins as possible. And then we crack out the popcorn and watch it all unfold and see all of the narratives being spun around it and giggle because we have this experience from this time. Right, you can have a look on Instagram. Nick, thoughts on small alt week still carrying on from last week? Yeah, definitely check out my Twitter because I've been talking about it a lot on the threads I do every morning. I don't know is the answer. I called that it was going to happen at the beginning because the Bitcoin dominance started breaking down. I said, right, this looks like it's happening. It happened in 2017 as well. I don't know if Solana being up 50% in 2 days is the end of it. Dogecoin went up 50% in a few days, or whether there's a few days left. Like I can't really say. That's a bit too unpredictable for me. You know, I don't like to guess. So I don't know the answer. We've had at least we've had a big chunk of it. I'm not expecting it to carry on for another week or 2 weeks. You may get another day, we may get a bounce and another 2 days, but we may not, right? So I wouldn't be trying to catch it if I was you. Unless you're trading, then make sure you're using stop losses. But I think, you know, we've had Doge, XRP and Solana really, you know, explode. So I don't think there's a lot left in it. But yeah, maybe you'll see another few days or you may not. So up or down, I'm not sure. And if a note on that really is, you know, if you're watching it unfold and you're not sure whether to buy or sell, then don't do anything and study it. Look at what's happening. See what happens over the next few days, whether we go up or down. That's what I'll be doing. And I'll be trying to put all that into practice when we have our final alt season. So each day is a great opportunity to learn. I know, you know, it's not everybody's full-time job. That comes back to how much time and energy do you have to put into it. I don't recommend that people that don't have the time to study start buying altcoins. So unless you have that time to put in and make some good decisions, because the last thing that you want to do is lose your Bitcoin. It's all about getting as much Bitcoin as possible. If you if you put on a speculative investment and lose 10% of your Bitcoin, I think that is devastating, to be honest. Like, imagine losing 10% of your gold stash when there's a looming hyperinflation. Like, it's not something you mess around with. Angela, what do you think of NFTs? Really good podcast on Real Vision with Gary Vee, where he lays out his NFT business plan. So check it out if you haven't seen it. NFTs are exciting, innovative. It's in that stage where it's just absolute chaos. People are buying pudgy penguins for $500,000. Like, it's absolutely nuts. There are so many use cases across art and sport and property and legal. Literally anything could be made into an NFT. So it's not a space I'm deep involved in because I wouldn't be able to. You know, I'm studying the market and Bitcoin is my primary role. Of course, I'm exposed to it somewhat, just being in crypto. It is, if we're talking about crypto being speculative, then what's happening in NFTs right now is like the peak speculation. If you're talking about those that are buying and selling, of course, then there are the infrastructure side is more important, and there are some very, very intelligent people who are working in the space and building in the space and trying to use NFTs to improve the world, right? Which is what we really want to see. It's like we don't know what it's going to look like in 4 years, but it's really exciting. And, you know, it's something that we'll all be exposed to in some way, shape, or form. Hey, Evil Oil Man. That's some name. When it's time to exit and sell Bitcoin into a stablecoin, the amount of people doing, would it make those stable coins not stable? Yeah, you explained it well. It'd be the opposite. So the more liquidity there is, then the more stable they will be. A stable coin would become very unstable if all of the liquidity drained from it and they immediately had to redeem everything. So it will make them more stable. I know a lot of people are thinking about how and when to do it. I'll be doing content. It is covered in the playbook. And I would recommend diversifying across stablecoins. I don't have any particular issue with any one of them, but you can diversify across Tether and USDC and DAI and PAX and BUSD. You don't need to have it all in one. Jay, no worries. If you're late, you'll be able to catch up afterwards. It'll be posted on Instagram and YouTube. Lots of talk about the I think you mean bear market extending, as you've warned, but also the bear market may not be as harsh as previous cycles. Will you have a variety of options available for re-entry? So first part of the question, the bear market will not be as harsh as previous cycles. Remember what I say to so many of these questions. Everybody's always saying it's going to be different all of the time. The bull market is not going to go as high. The bear market is not going to go as low. This mid-cycle shakeout is not like the previous ones. The halving's not going to have an impact. Everyone's always saying it's going to be different. And so far, none of it has been substantially different. Like, the structure is the same. They have their short-term nuances, but the structure is very much intact. So there's no reason right now why the bear market wouldn't be as harsh as previous cycles. Don't be looking for the model to be different until it is, right? Otherwise, you're going to not position yourself the right way. Will we have a variety of options for re-entry? Kind of. What I'll be looking to do and talking about is dollar cost averaging over a short period of time. So we'll be looking for the bear market low, which we'll be getting from the price decrease, but more so in that from timing. The stock to flow model is going to be invaluable. You can see, if you go have a look at it, the color scheme, where I think it goes blue for the 6 months where we should be dollar cost averaging in. So even if, you know, I disappeared, stock to flow model, when it goes blue, I think there's about 6 blue dots. You could do 6, 12, 18, 24 investments during that 6 months, and you're going to get an average price somewhere around the bottom. And that's how you protect yourself against the possibility that it might not be as harsh, because you'll be buying it around the right time. So if it only goes down 60%, you'll still be buying around the right time. What if it's harsher? Or if it goes down 90%, then you'll still be buying around the right time. So that should sort you out. Ian, do you think you'll be okay holding gold and silver? I think you'll be more than okay holding gold and silver. Gold and silver will be repriced as we go through a monetary reset. It has to. And if you're holding gold and silver, you will be protected. It's worked in the past. It will work in the future. Bitcoin is currently taking some of gold and silver's thunder, because gold and silver should be performing better right now. But we know where we're at in the Bitcoin cycle. So what are all the Bitcoin success stories going to do with their wealth after the Bitcoin peak? Are they going to go into fiat currency, or are they going to go into another inflation hedge asset? My bet is that billions of Bitcoin profits are going to flood into the gold and silver market. Bella, NFT podcast, just YouTube, Real Vision, Gary V, and it'll be right there. It was a few days ago. Rachel, what are the use cases of Bitcoin? I'm new to this and I'm trying to learn. Your number one stop needs to be the Bitcoin playbook and the recommended reading. So get that watched and absorbed. Get in the Telegram group, where there's lots of amazing resources being shared on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin only has 2 use cases. It's very simple. It's a superior monetary system, so it's a better medium of exchange. You can easily send Bitcoin to anybody, anywhere in the world, and it will take no longer than 10 minutes and about $5. That's if you, not even if you're using the Lightning Network, if you're doing it normally. And of course, if you try and send money to somebody now in, let's say, Afghanistan, how the hell are you going to do that? How are you going to support those people? Or it's basically impossible. And, you know, that's really being shown at the moment in El Salvador, who have 50% of their economy is in remittances. So one of the family going to the US to work and send money back home, and they end up spending 40% or so of those earnings in transfer payments to Western Union and other intermediaries. That all disappears with Bitcoin. It's all done on a transparent ledger. There can be no funny business. There are no counterparties, nobody to trust, no banks, no anything. You are your own bank. And just as importantly, perhaps more importantly at the moment, Bitcoin is the greatest store of value ever known to mankind, because we have solved for scarcity. We've never had money that is finite. We don't know how much gold has been the best effort, but we don't know how much gold exists. We create 2% more gold every year. With Bitcoin, there'll only ever be 21 million. So we've solved for scarcity. We have 21 million Bitcoin, and we have nearly 8 billion people. We currently have 1.5% adoption. What happens when that 1.5% adoption turns to 10% adoption, 20% adoption, etc.? The only thing that can happen is the Bitcoin price goes up, supply and demand, which means it is becoming the greatest store of value. It is already the greatest store of value known to mankind. That's why it is appreciating at 200% per year, compared to your current store of value, which is fiat currency, which is going down 10 to 15% a year in purchasing power. Cherub, nice hair. God, I haven't done anything. I don't know, are you taking the piss out of me? Like, I need to go and do something with it. But if you think it's cool, I'll leave it. Yeah, I don't know whether you're making fun of me. Evil Oil Man is my music name, but send me a link. I'd love to listen. J, software for charting is TradingView. They have a free version and you can pay for some extra stuff. Ground control excavating, is mid-October still your prediction for this cycle peak? It is a range mid-October to mid-November. I did a video explaining why mid-November, which is because the blocks are being processed a bit slower in this cycle. So if we're going by block, it can potentially be mid-November, but that is our range that we're looking at. Cherub, genuine compliment, grow it out longer. Wow, okay, we need to talk about that. It's not what I was planning. But if you think it's cool, then that means a lot to me, so. All right, I think that's it. Some awesome questions, so appreciate that. And, you know, really looking forward to the next few months. So well done, everybody. Thank you, Paulina. Thanks for all the questions. Have an amazing week, and I will talk to you soon. Lots to live.